Hi, in this video, we are going to look into the microservices of Book My Hotel application. Here, we are going to discuss about some of the concepts in this video. And in the next video, we will look into the code. So, we have discussed that Book My Hotel has four microservices: registration microservice, booking microservice, search and hotel microservices. They are all going to run in separate processes, and there's a Book My Hotel web application which will run in a separate process and will interact with all of these microservices to get the work done. Now, let's look into it in more detail. So, these are four of my microservices. Let's look into registration microservices. This has registration service. This service has the same code as that of the registration service which was available in the monolithic web application, right? So I've just taken out the code and kept it separately in a registration microservice. Then I'm going to use a REST API which is going to expose endpoints so that the outside world can interact with this microservice. So I have four microservices. Registration service has its endpoints exposed through REST API. Booking microservice has booking service with REST API, and same for search microservice and hotel microservice. Now let's look into web application. Now this web application no longer has the service and DAO classes. They are available in the microservices. So instead of that, I'm going to write other service classes and I'm going to give it the term of API service. So this API service is going to interact with the REST API so as to get the details or add the details using this registration service. So now I have the registration API service. It will interact with the REST API of registration microservice and which will further interact with the registration service. In the same way, Book My Hotel web application has booking API service. This booking API service will interact with the REST API of the booking microservice. And in the same way, I have the API service for the search and hotel microservices also. Fine. So this will be the structure of my web application and the microservices. Now, we have already discussed about this. Let's revisit it. I'm going to have a Eureka server which is going to run, and all the microservices will be registered to the Eureka server. Eureka server has Eureka server specific dependencies and microservices and microservice client, that is Book My Hotel web application. They are going to have Eureka client dependencies. So when Eureka client dependencies are added, what are the two things that happen? First of all, it registers the microservice to the Eureka server. Okay. Secondly, it will start a thread at its end, which is going to fetch the registry from the Eureka server and store it in the local cache. So, for example, Book My Hotel web application is also Eureka client, and it wants to interact with hotel microservice. It will just look into its local cache where the registry is present and then use the instance which it retrieves from this registry and connect to that particular instance, right? Now, let's talk about crashing of Eureka server. What happens when Eureka server crash? Is it possible for my web application or my microservices to still interact with other microservices? Yes, it is possible because each of these microservices, all the Eureka clients have registry in its local cache. So it can look into the local cache registry, find out another instance and can connect to it. But if any microservice fails, so the Eureka server doesn't know about it because it is not available, and hence the registry of other microservices and other Eureka clients are not updated. So if it tries to connect to the failed microservice, then it will get the error, right? And secondly, if there is a new microservices that comes up, it is not registered with the Eureka server, and hence it is not available to other Eureka clients. Okay. Now what happens if my microservice goes down? There are two scenarios in this case. The first scenario is that if I have stopped this microservice, in this case, there is a shutdown hook available in the Eureka client libraries, which connects with Eureka server and asks it to deregister this microservice. Okay, and the Eureka server will deregister this microservice. The second scenario is that the system crashes, my machine crashes. In this case, shutdown hook does not come into picture. And in this scenario, Eureka server notices that this microservice is down based on the fact that it has not received 3 heartbeats of the microservice. So it will not deregister a microservice if one heartbeat is missed. But in case there are 3 heartbeats which are missed, then it will deregister the microservice. Okay. So now we will be registering microservices to the Eureka in our next video. Okay. Thank you.